You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where it's always our pleasure to bring purposeful content to you and to spend a little bit of time with you each and every week. I can't thank you enough for being here and just appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope that at the end of the episodes you listen to, you find something that makes you go, why not me? Why can't I do what it is I want to do in life? Why am I not believing in my dreams? Why am I not giving myself the courage to dream? And that's really the intent of the show, is just to bring stories of people and ideas to you to get you moving again, get you dreaming again, give you hope again, right? Because life's too short, right? Like we say, life is too short to live any way other than with purpose, right? And that's the goal. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode. We're going to sit down with author Kevin Hall, who's written a book called My Childhood, My Memories Growing Up in a Bygone Era, amongst others. And I really want to explore with him the power of sharing stories of the past to create the future and to lead the future and to guide our future so that we can actually learn lessons from the past and we don't have to recreate some of the same problems, the same issues because we've failed to go, wait a second, we've been there before. Maybe it wasn't me personally, but it was a grandpa or somebody from the generation prior that felt the same way or saw these same things, faced the same problems, tried some different solutions. So we're not recreating the wheel as we progress as societies, as humans. I also want you guys to understand, like, he started writing his books after he retired in his 60s. And I think he's on his fourth or fifth book now. He loves writing, and that's that place of staying curious that we talk about, of constantly learning and moving forward in life, not just staying where we're at. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode with our conversation with Kevin Hall. Kevin, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast. How are you today?
Doing great, Jerrod. How are you doing?
I'm blessed to finally get the opportunity to share your story and meet with you. We put in some work to get you here. We had some
Yeah.
things that come up, so I want to thank you for your one of your best friends lost his wife recently, and that was
Yes.
at
Yeah.
the forefront of your attention. So I want to thank you for being there for them and having your priorities in the right place. And we could always push a podcast back, but you didn't want to miss an opportunity to be there for him.
Absolutely not. And one of the other reasons we had to push it back is on the plane ride back from visiting with them after the it was kind of like a dual memorial service. They're from Florida or living down there now. So we had a little to do down there. And now we'll be going this weekend to Minnesota for the more formalized memorial service. But on the flight back from Florida, both my wife and I wound up catching COVID. So we were
I
down and out for a few weeks.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your patience and I'm excited to get you on the show. I've had a lot of fun researching you and the book My Childhood, My Memories Growing Up in a Bygone Era. I
Yeah.
think it's such a cool name, right? I like going back in time to go forward in time, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Going back to
Yes.
see the lessons we've learned and how it applies today. I think too many times we get caught up discrediting our past or not necessarily learning lessons from the past, but putting judgment maybe on it, or we should have done this, we shouldn't have done that, but we don't really sit with and go, okay, what can I learn from this? And I think
Right.
it's awesome that you chose to share your story at this stage in your life. So now that your grandkids and stuff can actually learn and
Yes.
understand.
Yes. They were the catalyst behind the stories being actually put in book format. As when they visited us, they would often ask, "Grandpa, what was it like for you as a kid? And, what'd you do growing up?" Because they grew up with computers and
Right.
all that kind of stuff, and we didn't have any of that. We had stickball in the street. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And you had to yell car. You remember yelling car when a car was coming down the
oh
road? You had
yes,
to get
yes,
out of the road.
yes. Yes, yes, all the time. And we were on a street that wasn't real busy, but at two times during the day. And that was folks going to work and folks coming home from work. And then, yeah, car, you
Yeah,
know.
you had to get out of the road, man.
Yes, yes. But
Yeah,
it was
that's
fun. It was so much fun.
yeah, and I think it's what I really love is embracing your story, right? Embracing it and finding the value in sharing it. I think too many times because we're maybe not a celebrity, because we don't have blue check marks next to our name and all the social media, and we don't
Yes,
have the
yes.
paparazzi, we don't find the value in our own story, but everybody's story is valuable.
Absolutely. And another thing, Jerrod, that got me thinking about it, what do we leave behind as a
Mm,
legacy these days?
mm,
And a lot of people are cremated. There's no longer even the cemeteries to go to visit them afterwards.
yeah.
So, what do we leave behind? And so, my first two books were what I call memoir history, and about 75-80% are my stories, and the other 20-25% is pictures of that time frame, pictures that I've researched, pictures that I have, um, you know just to kind of show them what it was like when we were a kid. And I mean, my town in Ilion, and it's actually Ilion, my childhood, my memories. um, we had I mean, at its peak, maybe 10,000 people in the town.
Yeah.
And we could walk the whole town. And the biggest claim to fame from the town, and it's not so politically correct, I guess, today for certain reasons, was Remington Arms, the gun manufacturer.
Sure.
That's the birthplace of it. And the town, though, had everything you could think of. Power News, which today would probably be like a Starbucks, only they also had all kinds of newspapers. And if you were a cigar aficionado, they had all kinds of that in there. It's where you go in and meet people for the day and have a quick little cup of coffee and maybe a chit chat. We had W.T. Grant store, National Auto Store. Everything was in the town until urban renewal came through in the late 60s and 70s. This is me talking, sold the town a bill of goods, and wound up raising over 113 buildings
Ah,
and just decimated the town. They did the same thing up and down a few different areas along the thruway. Amsterdam was hit
sure.
also that way. And the good news is Amsterdam's starting to rebuild and return it to what it was, but
Yeah.
that's a slow progress.
Yeah, and I think I love it because we leave pictures a lot of times, but the picture only tells a piece of the story, right? It tells like what was captured right at that moment. It doesn't tell you
Yes.
like you're doing the history behind it, the backstory and all the memories that came from the place.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
Kevin, now before I get you going too much, I gotta warm you up. I gotta make sure we're ready for this. Are you ready, my
Get me
friend?
nice and loose. I am ready.
All right, here we go. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset all the way. It gives me time to reflect. And when you see the sun, if you happen to be near the water and you see it shimmering off, it just kind of puts you in a little bit of a trance to where you can just think, you know, this is life. This is fabulous. And you think back through what you might have accomplished that day. You count your many blessings. So, yeah, sunset all the way.
I love it. Favorite song on repeat?
Oh, I like Highway to Hell, uh,
AC/DC? All right,
AC/DC.
I wasn't gonna guess
Um,
that.
I like a lot of Leonard Skinner.
Okay.
And then there's a number of the Beatles songs. I mean, I like anything from around the 70s era. To me, that's just great music. And I was taking guitar lessons for a while. I just can't get these old crippled fingers moving fast enough. But
Uh,
I enjoyed playing a number of different tunes from the Beatles. A lot of them, I'll tell you right now, are only like three, four, five chords, and
yeah,
you've got the whole song. And
yeah.
um, but it was yeah, I would say 70s era songs.
Okay.
I usually Chicago even. I crank up some of Chicago every now and then.
All right, that's good. Favorite book?
Oh, does Sudoku count? Because that's what I've been doing a lot of lately.
Keeping
In
your
between,
mind sharp.
yes, in between writing my books, I got to have a little downtime. And Jerrod, I have so many books that I have accumulated and am reading. And you had another guest on your show, Efren Delgado,
Yeah.
The Opposite is True. And I've got his queued up to read. There's just a number of them out there. I also like a lot of books that are kind of business oriented.
Mhm.
There's one I've read a couple of times, Who Moved My Cheese, which is a real interesting book. Very
What's
short, very short. You could read through it in an afternoon.
what's the
Um,
premise of that book?
it just gets you to think along the lines of, all right, here's, I don't want to call it an obstacle, but it may be a challenge. How can I think through that? So it's along those lines. And they have a lot of short little couple of paragraphs on a page to get you thinking and reading along. But it's interesting. But it also goes towards a book I'll probably write in the future, and I won't get too much into that right now. So that's the
Nice.
answer to the second question.
Um, you get to have dinner with one person. Who do you want to have dinner with and why?
Right now, it would probably be Thomas Sowell.
Okay.
That guy, he's in his 90s. He's still sharp as a tack. And just the fact that he started out a liberal progressive and he winds up being very conservative, very, he's just somebody I would love to have dinner with. And I'll also throw out a couple of more. Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs guy, love to have dinner with him. And Shaq, the basketball guy. I would love to have dinner with Shaq. So yeah, those are the folks that I have a big, broad array of interests.
What would you
And
ask Shaq?
oh man, I'd probably get into reminiscing a little bit with him. Not so much on his basketball days. We'll probably touch on that, but his upbringing.
Mm,
What was it like? Single mom, that kind of thing, and see how much it mirrored my own upbringing. I had both my parents, but still, we were, I'll say it, we were fairly poor.
sure.
And so we had to make do. And I remember my mom telling a story. One day she went to the cupboard because we were hungry, and she says, I didn't even have peanut butter to put on bread. Or at that point in time, she'd never let that happen again. But it's just the way it was back there in some cases. So those are the folks that I would love to have dinner with.
I love it. Let me test real quick.
Am I coming through pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How about me?
Oh yeah, loud and clear. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, it's something go goofy here where I can't hear myself, but oh, there we go. Probably because I didn't plug it all the way in. That's awesome. So funny story about Shaq. I actually met him in San Antonio.
Oh wow, yes.
Yeah, when I was in Air Force basic training, because his stepdad's a big Army guy,
Okay.
and the Army base is right there, and he was over at the gym shooting baskets. This is when he was still in college at LSU, and they had it all cordoned off so he could play. But yeah, super nice guy.
Yeah, I'm an admirer of his and what he has done for the different communities that he's in, and how he's even told his kids, hey, look, this is my money. This ain't
Yeah,
your money. You're
yeah,
gonna go out and earn your way.
for sure. What's a
And
memorable quote or saying that kind of stays with you, Kevin?
oh wow. Now see that one I hadn't thought about, but
Mm.
yeah, you're throwing a twist at me.
Yeah, I like to
Um
keep it fresh.
I think Stephen Covey's we are not um let's see, I'm trying to think of exactly how he put it. We are not uh uh
Oh,
human
yeah.
beings on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings on a human journey.
Love it.
And that's really goes into and I'll tell you what was the catalyst behind that book is we've had a lot of things happen, my wife and I, but then those friends of ours I was telling you about, the wife had just passed. They were up visiting, and we had something happen right in front of them, and it was undeniable. And when they looked at it, Louise carries in her purse little red cardinal charms. And she took that out and she placed it where this incident had happened. And she kind of does that as paying homage to the spirit. Now, they are, I'll say we all are religious in our own way. Their son's a Lutheran minister. But this goes beyond a religion. And I did a lot of research for this last book, going back to the Egyptians and the Romans, the Iroquois Nation, Indian here in New York State, going to cultures of China, Japan, India. I talked to a lot of medical experts in the field. I was listening to TED Talks, reading books on it. And there's just so much on the subject matter. And I was talking to a person not long ago, and we were talking about my books, and he says, it's kind of like your books are bookends. And I said, what do you mean by that? He says, you wrote Ilion, my childhood, my memories, and now you're writing a book on signs. Beginning of your life, more towards the end of your life,
Mm,
bookends. And it just kind of took me back.
sure.
And it was interesting. And my wife shared one with me yesterday, and she was online, and it was one from the Beatles, John Lennon, and this was after he had passed. Um, and Paul was talking to a gentleman, and the gentleman had wrote a song and played it for Paul, and the ending of it had a sentence in it, and Paul broke down and had to leave the room. Well, Paul's wife turned to the guy who was playing it and said, you don't understand. That's the sentence John Lennon told Paul.
Oh, wow.
And so these are the types of signs to let you know there is more. There is so much more than just this, the skin and bones here. We don't go on to nothingness. And if you want to look at it from a scientific perspective, can you destroy energy? We're energy.
Right.
We can change the shape, we can change the vessel, we can
Mhm.
change the type, but we can't destroy it. So where does that energy go? And there's just so much of this out there that I then wrote this the last book, Signs, and I mean I've had a lot of great comments from people coming back with their own stories, and I talked to one gentleman who I interviewed for the book. He was on a chartered plane. He chartered it for him and his family to take him back home after his brother's funeral. 10 minutes into the flight, the pilot dies.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he now has to take over, and it's a twin engine plane with all kinds of instrumentation on it. And he told me afterwards, he says, he had the focus, and that's all he had to block everything out and focus. Well, obviously, he lands a plane, he's alive. Well, Amazon Prime made a movie out of it called On a Wing and a Prayer. And Dennis Quaid played this gentleman in the movie. I tried in the worst way to get in touch with Dennis Quaid. I wanted to get a quote.
Yeah.
Uh, I just couldn't reach Dennis. But anyways, the gentleman, Doug White was his name. Doug told me, he says, look, if your book helps one person, it's done its job. And that just kind of put me at ease to say, you know what? Maybe there's some messages here that can help
Mm.
people. And a book of, I kind of refer to it as a book of hope.
Yeah, and this is your new book called Signs: The Veil is Thinner Than We Imagine. It recently was
Yes.
released.
Yes.
Do you talk to me about this? 'Cause let me ask you this. Do you think as we get older and we're nearer the end of our life, we're closer to the end than the beginning, that we look for signs more, we pay a little more attention than maybe we did in our youth?
I definitely think so, and for the following reason, Jerrod, when I was writing the book, I was thinking back through, well, this happened to me and this happened to me. Were those kind of
Mm,
signs then that I didn't recognize? And yeah, I absolutely do believe that they were. And I've had a couple of uh, you know, near death kinds of situations where I felt something more had saved me. Why didn't, and I had a gas can with gas in it and the nozzle lit. I was using it to kind of get a fire going a little better and I shouldn't have.
yeah,
And then the nozzle caught on fire. Why didn't that gas can blow up?
yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. I fell off a bridge at one point in my youth. Had I been a couple of feet more down the bridge before I fell off, I might not be talking to you today. And what, why?
Yeah.
Why did these things happen? And then there's just other situations like that. And I have to count my lucky stars. Now,
Do you think it's necessary to have life experience to recognize the signs? You know what I mean? Maybe if I'm youthful and I'm young and I'm in my 20s, something happens and it feels like an obstacle or a hurdle or
mhm,
an inconvenience because I don't have the experience of what comes after it.
yeah.
So it's
Y-
easy to reflect, right? Versus hard to see in the moment.
it is on a number of occasions, and unless you're looking for it, you
Mm,
might not necessarily see it. And I'll give you an example. One of the things I talk about in the book, and this is just one form of science that can come to you, is they can come to you in the form of numbers. And there's a lot of talk about numerology and stuff like that. But this is what happened to me. And I was on my way home from one of those guitar lessons. And this was just before I was ready to release my book. And this car pulled right in front of me. I had to hit my brakes. And I'm saying a few words in my head. I didn't utter them out, but I was saying them in my head. And then I looked down at the license plate. Now, my name is Kevin. A few of my close friends call me Kev,
yeah.
but very few. On the license plate, and I kid you not, KEV followed by four numbers. Why? This guy just cut me off.
Yeah.
Why am I seeing this license plate Kev with the numbers? So I came home and I had already written about numbers in the book. So I went online and I typed in those sets of numbers and a lot of times they're referred to as angel numbers. So I just said angel number in this, and it came back and it told me, you're on the right path. Keep going. Don't let things slow you down. So I just said, okay, maybe that was a sign.
Sure.
Maybe it was just a crazy driver. You, as the recipient, have to figure that out. And to me, a lot of times some of these signs are just totally unmistakable. They are signs. Other times, all right, maybe that was just a coincidence and that could
Sure.
happen.
Yeah.
So the things to watch out for also in with animals. I'm sitting on the back deck after my wife and I were done working for the day, and all of a sudden this butterfly flies by. No big deal. We get them all the time, but he makes a complete circle in the air and comes back and lands on my shoulder.
Yeah.
We have never had that happen. I
What's that
mean,
mean?
what does it mean?
Yeah.
Now, I went and I looked up, okay, butterflies and spiritual world. A lot of the animals are said to be messengers.
Mm,
And that same time frame, I'll say it's probably a week, that very next week, we had a hummingbird fly into our garage. He lands on the overhead wire going to the garage door opener. So, how do I get this hummingbird out? Well, I took the bristle of the broom and the bristles are sticking up and I went up. He stepped on it. I brought him down. And as I brought him down to here, he flew back up to the wire. All right, let me repeat the process. Go up, bring it down. This time, what I did was I take my finger, I go up along the bristles. He steps onto my finger. And we're there, we're looking at each other. I mean, eyeball to eyeball. And I walk him out of the garage. He flies back in. Repeat the same process again. This time he's on my finger. I walk him out further into the driveway. And we just stood there looking at each other. And it was like the most calm, serene, centered I had felt for a while. And we just looked at each other. And then he flies off.
Yeah.
Was it a sign? For me, because of the way I felt and the feeling that it gave me. And again, I go look up hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are also considered messengers, right down to delivering messages. And some of those messages may even be related to the color of their wings.
Sure.
So, and you probably heard, Jerrod, about people seeing cardinals after a loved one passes.
Yeah.
That's another sign. And the reason that the cardinal is important is because it's stated that the red of its wings is due to the divine touch of God, Jesus's blood.
Mm.
And the American Indian, a lot of them wore the cardinal feather in their headbands because they believed that represented the spirit of a dead warrior, and that would give them that much more strength to go into battle.
Right.
So there's a lot of this that goes on out there, and it transcends history, transcends cultures. The Norse have what they call thin places, and it's very similar to what I'm talking about. It's where you can communicate with the other side, and they refer to them and have for a long time as thin places. And you can go back to the Egyptians. They not only had the Book of the Dead, but they had the Book of Dreams, and that exists in a museum over in the UK. And they had all kinds of symbols that represented different things. If you had this symbol in your dream, this is what it meant. And they actually had oracles that would help you interpret your dreams. The Roman Empire, they had a law at one time that said, if you have a dream about the empire, you must go to the nearest forum and tell everyone about your dream as soon as you can,
Mm.
because they felt it might have an impact on the empire and, keeping it strong and well-being. So there is so much out there. And then there was a doctor I interviewed, Dr. Christopher Kerr. He's out of Buffalo, New York. He's a cardiologist by trade, but he's become the CEO of hospice and palliative care in Buffalo. And he's chronicled over 1,500 dying patients out, and I'll call it a process. And about 80 see visions. And most of the time, these visions are relatives or friends or pet animals.
Mm.
And it gives them that comfort feeling before they pass on. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you're old enough to remember Sam Kinison, the comedian.
Oh yeah.
I write a little bit about Sam in the book. And Sam was in an auto accident driving to his next gig. And the rest of the members were in the van right behind him. And it wasn't Sam's fault. It was the other gentleman's fault. But as Sam lay there, they said, well, this is serious, but we believe he should pull through. All of a sudden, he looks up like he's looking to the corner of a room saying, no, no, I don't want to go. No. And then his brother is telling the whole story. And in a few moments later, oh, all right. Okay. Okay. He's gone.
Huh.
And what are these visions? Who are they talking to? So this really interested me. And I don't want to get into, a lot of different religious aspects to it
Sure.
because I want to keep this open to everybody.
Yeah.
But it transcends all kinds of religions, cultures, countries, time frames. So there is more here, and I hate to ramble on so much about it, but there is a lot here.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
but I think, at least in my circle and a lot of circles I follow, we're definitely in a more inquisitive time as a society, right? Because we have access to Google and all the stuff like you mentioned. Like we can have an idea and go, wait a second, what does this actually mean? Which I
right.
think is very good, right? We should be asking questions. So what do you want to ask you, Kevin? What do you think? What kind of answers do you think you're providing your grandchildren or just the overall readers of your books by sharing stories that have passed? What are you hoping they take from that?
Hmm. That is a good question. Um, Maybe to help them with a foundation, maybe to help to say that
Mm.
we are here for a purpose.
Love it.
And you have to find your own purpose. And that could be a lifelong journey. But why not? Why not look? Why not see? Am I supposed to be doing more? Should I be doing more?
Yeah.
Um, as it's stated, he will know you by your good works. And when you think about that, what good works am I doing? Well, if I can help another person read the book, I mean, I've had a few people comment back that, this really helped them to just relax and think back on the past in a very nice, calm, and good way. And I said, good, I gave them a chance to relive some great memories.
Yeah.
And to me, then that really is giving me extra meaning for having written the book.
What I love about that, what you said there at the beginning, Kevin, is a foundation, right? I think, especially in recent times, we're so quick to dismiss the past.
Yes.
We want to erase it. We want to not learn from it and just kind of pretend it didn't happen. But you're right, your past is a foundation for the future.
Yes, yes. And I go back to, I remember math classes, and you learn this, and they said everything built upon it, and you needed that solid foundation to move on to other things, algebra, and those sorts of other math related classes. But you had to start with that foundation.
Yeah.
Your past is your foundation.
Right.
And I will tell you, I found out some interesting things about my past. I have a great great grandfather who wrote a post Civil War book. Now, I knew this growing up. His name was Isaac Hall, and he helped fend off Pickett's charge at Gettysburg, him and his group. And he actually dedicated a monument at Gettysburg, which is the 97th Regiment New York Volunteers. And we've been down there and we've seen it. But that's not where my history ends. I come to find out that I have a couple of other interesting relatives. Lyman Hall. Lyman was the signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was with the Georgia group of three guys who went up to Philadelphia and represented Georgia, and Lyman was the signer. One of the 56 that did sign it, and then Winston Churchill. And
Mm.
I said, whoa, Winston Churchill, his grandmother was Clarissa Hall, another relative. And we all kind of stem back to John Hall, who came over from England in the 1630s, as best as we can determine. And he landed in Massachusetts. And then from there, the Hall family just kind of migrated out. And even out in my area here in Rochester, not too far, there was a place called Hall's Corner, started by three Hall brothers. It's now just called Hall. But another, I don't want to call it claim to fame, but another part of history. And to learn this and to learn, we've had doctors in the family, we've had ministers in the family. This just furthers my foundation and understanding. And I'd love, one of these days I will spend quite a bit of time out on Ancestry or one of those sites and try to
Yeah.
build a whole tree, but it's a good start and it's a good foundation to grow from.
Yeah, and I like that because it allows the future generations to have a bit of pride in where they've come from, a bit of understanding of how they
Yes.
got there, but also a responsibility to move it forward.
Yes, yes. And I tend to be conservative by nature, and it's just the way I was raised. We were always taught, you see that hedgerow between the yards? Yep, your nose ends there, which means keep it out of the next person's business. Their business is their business.
Right.
Now, and then we were also told, unless you hear screaming and somebody getting hurt, you stay
Yeah.
out of their business and they stay out of your business.
Right.
And I believe that. And I also believe that stems even to economically. If I want to donate to charities, if I want to help somebody out, I'll do that. And I'll tell you, I have a couple real good charities that I donate to. Tunnel to Towers, I love that one. And that came about after 9/11.
Yeah.
Just absolutely love it. And the Mike Rowe Foundation. I am a believer in they should keep shop classes in school.
Sure.
And if it can help a person in the trades, we really do need tradespeople. And so I really love those too. But we also have others. We give to the church. There's other local charities. There's the volunteer fire department here in our town. And I can reach out and I can touch all of those and I know they're solid. But then there's a gazillion others out there, once you start giving, you get on a list and, everybody's flooding your mailbox.
Sure.
But it's the type of thing to where I'll make those decisions. I don't need other people making them for me, nor do I want to make those decisions for the next person. Everybody's got to view it and think it and figure it out for themselves. If they ask, I'll give them all the information I got, but I don't want to lead them. And that's just part of my conservative nature. And I'll help anybody out who asks me. I tend to be a softy a little bit. At least that's what my wife says all the time. You're just a big softy. Um, but yeah, I've done okay. I went to college, had a job in the computer industry, and managed to do okay.
And
So, if I can help someone else, I typically do.
when did you decide you were gonna transition into writing these books?
Oh, that was after I retired.
Yeah.
And I retired at age 60. And it wasn't so much I picked that date to retire. My company had a downsizing. And they came to our department. And most of us, I will say this, most of in the department were over 55. And that's who they targeted.
Sure.
And they gave us a nice separation package. I can't complain. I love the company, still speak highly of the company. But it was the type of thing I looked at my wife and said, can we do it? And she's the CFO of the family and she did all the number crunching. She says, yeah, you don't want to go back to work? Don't go back to work.
Sure.
So I've been retired since 60. I'm 67 this year, but I didn't start writing until 2022. And that was when I wrote a short story as a Christmas gift for the grandkids. And we kind of saved it to the last gift of the day. And my one oldest grandson, I called him over because I typically sit in my easy chair. I got the Santa hat on, I do it all up.
Yeah.
And so I said, Caleb, come here. And I said, you've always been asking Grandpa what it was like as a child. I want you to open this. And it was the book all wrapped up. And the expression on his face and those of my family when he opened that up,
Yeah.
that was the best present all day long. And that's kind of the catalyst that got me into writing at that point.
What was your biggest hurdle in believing that your story is worth telling, right? And believing that, like, okay, if I put this down on paper, people will actually read it.
That kind of borders a little bit on the imposter syndrome.
Mm,
Are we really authors? Who would really read my work? Am I good enough to do that kind of thing? First of all, let me start with the answer to the last one. Yes, you're good enough. Don't let it stop you.
Sure.
Because there's tons of editors out there that can help polish it up. Yeah, it's going to cost a couple of dollars, but they will help polish it into the book that you want.
Hmm.
So don't let that ever stop you from sitting down and writing. And maybe you don't want to write for other people. You want to just write for your family and leave it as a legacy. There's also the thought, Jerrod, of you should write for your audience. So if you're serious about getting into writing, find out what your audience, your target audience really likes to read. Get some of those books, look them over. And by the way, your library is your best friend. You don't need to spend a lot of dollars in getting those types of books. Go to the library
Yeah.
and check them out. The best compliment paid to me, that first book, Ilion, My Childhood, My Memory, is in my hometown library. Um, but don't let these obstacles stop you. Write. If you feel you want to write, write. So that's what I kind of tell people. And I forget some of the other parts of that question you were asking.
No, it's good. Talk to me about the internal conversation you have with yourself, overcoming the fear, because that's one of the things, especially for newer writers that I've talked to, is we all face that like, oh my gosh, once I hit send and I put this out, it's out for everybody to opinionate on. How did you get comfortable knowing that was coming?
The first time it was hard. And in fact, I had my wife was sitting there saying, click the button, click the button. Oh, and your hand is shaking, but you have to do it. And once you do it, it's there. Now there's another thing that I've read many, many times. You can't control what other people are going to say and do.
Yeah.
Don't try. Just do, in this case, what's going to make you happy. If they like it, love it, great. But I'll tell you what was harder for me. The first time I got a 2 rating out on Amazon and no comment.
Yeah.
I just said, leave a comment. Tell me
Yeah.
why. What was
Yeah.
missing? And those are hard things. And to some people, it's kind of a form of a rejection. And yeah, I mean, you do feel a little rejected when you get a 1 or a 2 rating. What didn't they like? But I will also tell you, there are people out there, no matter what you do, they're going to give you 1 and 2 ratings.
Yeah.
Try to not let it bother you. It will. I'm not going to kid you. But you move on from there. If they leave comments, take the comments seriously. Can you improve on your next book? And then move forward. It's all a big learning experience. And when you're an indie author, there is a lot to learn. And you don't necessarily have a whole focus group behind you that can help you along the way. But there's a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of YouTube lives. One that I
Yeah.
love and belong to is Book Launchers. Uh, Julie Broad is the owner of that, and she does a great job. And they do a lot of deep dives to help you out with different questions. April Cox is another one. April writes a lot of children's books, and she's got a lot of insight to help you there. So these are a couple, but there's many, many, many. If you're looking at Amazon ads, Brian Cohen. I mean, Brian's been around for a while, and he can help you with that. But there's a lot out there to learn, and don't think you'll learn it all in a week. It's going to take you a little bit, and you know, it's part of the journey. And
Yeah.
as
You just
long
gotta
as
get
you're having
started.
fun,
Yeah.
yes,
Gotta
yeah, and
enjoy
just have
it
fun with it.
for
Yep.
sure. Get started, enjoy it, and don't think you have to have all the answers to get
No.
in motion, right? That's one of the downsides to having so much information available. Sometimes we'll get paralyzed by analysis, right? We're always analyzing, looking for another thing before we
Yes.
get started. What would you
Yes.
say, Kevin, has been the greatest personal discovery you've made about yourself by sharing your memoirs?
Mhm. One of the first things that came to mind is, you know, just know you're not perfect,
Oh, yeah.
and you're going to make mistakes, and you've made mistakes, and you'll probably make more mistakes, but learn from them.
Yeah.
The second thing is you can't have a do-over. You can't go back and change something. Oh, I wish I would have said, or I wish I would have done, you know. Don't let that consume you. Again, learn from it. Can you do better now? Fabulous. Then, you know, that's a good message to take away. But don't let it consume you and eat you up, because all of us have those moments where you think, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I should have done this differently, or something. We all have that, every one of us. So move on from that. And the other thing for me was it reconnected me. My dad died young, and it just reconnected me with a lot of that through going back and revisiting my childhood. So I took it as another journey that I was on. And if part of telling of my story helped another person remember theirs, then so much more the better. So I
Yeah.
think those are kind of the messages, at least
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, if there's one thing you would want your grandchildren to take away from the whole process, what would that be?
If you enjoy it, go forward with it. It's going to be work, but don't let it stop you. And have fun with the process.
Yeah.
Don't let it weigh you down. Just enjoy the process. And I say that because I am writing my fourth book right now. The process is a little bit more daunting on this one. It deals more with um, oh, how's the best way that I typically say this here? It's kind of like sci-fi meets world history meets fun. Yeah, I'd say it that way. It's sci-fi meets world history meets fun. And the worst part about this journey is the research that goes into it.
Sure.
Um, and a lot of the sources, and this is why it's a little bit tough. I don't get the same answer from multiple sources. So then I have to dig deeper to really find out, all right, where is this actually coming from?
Mm,
And one of the parts, as an example, is I'm looking into the Blitz that happened in Europe during World War II.
sure.
And I'm finding different total number of days that it actually took place. And so I've really got to get down and narrow into the actual source to find out the total number of days of the Blitz. Um, and I mean, that just ties into the story. So these are the types of things that take time and, you know, kind of say, oh, you know, why can't it be a little bit easier? But nothing good is ever real easy.
Yeah, that's a good message for your kids and for all the audience, right? Is we've got to find joy in the process of getting wherever we want to be. And we're so, and I know everybody's heard this before, but we're so focused on getting to a destination. And then you
Yep.
get there and it doesn't live up to what you thought it would be because you realize all the joy was in the journey.
Yeah, and I can speak to that because when I was a kid and even up through my first job, I always wanted to rush to get it done and get on to
Sure.
the next thing. Get it done, get on to the next thing. Um, I never took time to step back and enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. And it wasn't really, Jerrod, to probably the last 10, 15 years of my career that I finally learned that lesson. Take a step back. You're still going to reach the conclusion, but enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Understand it a little deeper. And that's where I'm trying to use that and guide me as I'm writing my books.
That's fantastic. Kevin, it's been an honor having you on the show today. And we appreciate you letting us share your story. Where can our audience connect with you and follow along your journey?
I'm on many different social medias, and you can find me Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit is just a couple right off the top. But also my own website, which I'm looking to redo this year, kevin-hall.com. There is a free download there of a chapter of my latest book. and it deals with the last gentleman to make it out alive of the Twin Towers as they were collapsing around him. A very, very interesting story. As well as I have tips out there for other writers. I have links to other podcasts that I've done, and Jerrod will be putting the link to yours out there too.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's one of the best spots. I'm not really keen on the website as compared to others from a look and feel perspective, but the information is spot on.
Excellent. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, Jerrod. This has been a pleasure, and I really enjoy you being flexible enough as I went through a couple of issues.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.